Welcome to day 10 in A Course in Miracles. I hope you've had a great time practicing lesson 9, which was I do not see anything as it is now. We will be continuing on with lesson 10 after our text reading, which comes from chapter 2, the separation and the atonement. And we're up to part 3 today, the altar of God. Okay. The atonement can only be accepted within you by releasing the inner light. Since the separation, defenses have been used almost entirely to defend against the atonement and thus maintain the separation. This is generally seen as a need to protect the body. The many body fantasies in which minds engage arise from the distorted belief that the body can be used as a means for attaining atonement. Perceiving the body as a temple is only the first step in correcting this distortion, because it alters only part of it. It does recognize that atonement in physical terms is impossible. The next step, however, is to realize that a temple is not a structure at all. Its true holiness lies at the inner altar around which the structure is built. The emphasis on beautiful structures is a sign of the fear of atonement and an unwillingness to reach the altar itself. The real beauty of the temple cannot be seen with the physical eye. Spiritual sight, on the other hand, cannot see the structure at all because it is perfect vision. It can, however, see the altar with perfect clarity. For perfect effectiveness, the atonement belongs at the center of the inner altar, where it undoes the separation and restores the wholeness of the mind. Awesome. So the whole functioning of the atonement is correction, undoing the separation and restoring wholeness of the mind. And that atonement belongs at the center of the inner altar, the atonement. Before the separation, the mind was invulnerable to fear because fear did not exist. Both the separation and the fear are miscreations that must be undone for the restoration of the temple and for the opening of the altar to receive the atonement. This heals the separation by placing within you the one effective defense against all separation thoughts and making you perfectly invulnerable. So what does invulnerable mean? It means you're completely untouched by any attacks. This heals the separation. So when you have the atonement at your very core of your being, within the altar of your temple, this will heal the separation by placing within you the one effective defense against all separation thoughts, and it will make you perfectly invulnerable. The acceptance of the atonement by everyone is only a matter of time. This may appear to contradict free will because of the inevitability of the final decision, but this is not so. You can temporize and you are capable of enormous procrastination, but you cannot depart entirely from your Creator, who set the limits on your ability to miscreate. An imprisoned will engenders a situation which, in the extreme, becomes altogether intolerable. Tolerance for pain may be high, but it is not without limit. Eventually, everyone begins to recognize, however dimly, that there must be a better way. As this recognition becomes more firmly established, it becomes a turning point. This ultimately reawakens spiritual vision, simultaneously weakening the investment in physical sight. The alternating investment in the two levels of perception is usually experienced as conflict, which can become very acute, but the outcome is as certain as God. I'm really glad to know that, because it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, is how, I, you, everyone can seem so, I don't know, can seem so like whole in many ways, like with joy, with love and encouragement and kindness and all these beautiful qualities. And then there seems to be another side which can almost come out as the opposite, perhaps criticism or depression. It seems that, we have two sides to us, really positive, I guess, as we would call it in our worldly terms, and then not so positive or negative, so light and darkness. So that's because we have investment in two levels of perception, and that's usually experienced as conflict, and it can become very acute. Perhaps this here could be referring to what a lot of people experience as mental illness. Bipolar might be an example of this, because if you have such extreme conflict in your two levels of perception, you're going to experience the extreme highs and the extreme lows. But the outcome is as certain as God. Okay, so the outcome of us eventually, or whenever we realize there must be a better way, and then we start to awaken, that is certain going to happen for everyone. Spiritual vision literally cannot see error. Wow. And merely looks for atonement. So it merely looks for, instead of seeing error in anyone, it only looks for atonement. Atonement, again, is undoing separation, the restoration of wholeness. So you're basically looking through any projections of separation that someone might be blurting out at you. You see right through it, and you only see them as whole and perfect. It's God's perfect creation. That's all spiritual vision literally can see. That's cool. All solutions the physical eye seeks dissolve. Spiritual vision looks within and recognizes immediately that the altar has been defiled and needs to be repaired and protected. Perfectly aware of the right defense, it passes over all others, looking past error to truth. Because of the strength of its vision, it brings the mind into its service. So the mind then serves spiritual vision. This re-establishes the power of the mind and makes it increasingly unable to tolerate delay, realizing that it only adds unnecessary pain. As a result, the mind becomes increasingly sensitive to what it would once have regarded as very minor intrusions of discomfort. Okay, interesting. So what I think it's saying really here is that when you become more spiritually in tune, then your mind is not going to be able to tolerate what it once might have just seen as little annoyances. And that is a sign of what we were talking about yesterday. In the text, it was talking about we were talking about discernment and how we are then able to know. What was it? The denial, that was it. You start to deny anything that is not true. That's what the true purpose of denial is. So as we become more in tune with our spiritual vision, our discernment increases and we're able to deny what is not true. Even if it's something that we might have thought is just a little thing, we're not going to be able to tolerate it like we once did, because it's not in line with the spiritual vision. The children of God are entitled to the perfect comfort that comes from perfect trust. Awesome. Perfect trust. Perfect trust, perfect comfort. Until they achieve this, they waste themselves and their true creative powers on useless attempts to make themselves more comfortable by inappropriate means. Alright, so here we are running around trying to buy the latest comfortable bed or the best armchair or really comfortable car, really nice, warm, comfortable clothes. Nothing wrong with that. But I mean, that's physical. It's a physical level. We also might try and make ourselves more comfortable by spending time, I don't know, posting happy photos on social media. Or we might try and make ourselves more comfortable by wearing makeup or expensive earrings or jewellery, clothes or whatever. That's quite different to the perfect comfort that comes when we have perfect trust in God. And that is when we're able to tap into our true creative powers, when we have perfect trust. So I'll read that again. The children of God are entitled to the perfect comfort that comes from perfect trust. Until they achieve this, they waste themselves and their true creative powers on useless attempts to make themselves more comfortable by inappropriate means. But the real means are already provided and do not involve any effort at all on their part. It's already done. The atonement is the only gift that is worthy of being offered at the altar of God because of the value of the altar itself. It was created perfect and is entirely worthy of receiving perfection. That's your altar. It is worthy. It is so valuable. It is perfect. And it's entirely worthy of receiving perfection. That's you. It's your true essence. God and His creations are completely dependent on each other. He depends on them because He created them perfect. He gave them His peace so they could not be shaken and could not be deceived. Yes. Whenever you are afraid, you are deceived and your mind cannot serve the Holy Spirit. This starves you by denying you your daily bread. Your daily bread. So our daily bread then is our communion with the Holy Spirit? Is that what you mean here? Whenever you are afraid, you are deceived. Your mind cannot serve the Holy Spirit. This starves you by denying you your daily bread. If we can translate to the affirmative, got my cucumber and lemon water today. Quite nice, got a good tang to it. So I think if we switch it around, then it would be like whenever you are the opposite of afraid, whenever you are at peace, then your mind can serve the Holy Spirit, and therefore you receive your daily bread. Spiritual daily bread, our spiritual food is from the Holy Spirit. God's voice speaking to us. God is lonely without his sons, and they are lonely without him. They must learn to look upon the world as a means of healing the separation. The atonement is the guarantee that they will ultimately succeed. Okay, fantastic. So we've already got a guarantee that the world will be healed, and it's our lesson here to start looking at the world as a means of healing the separation. Plenty of work to be done, that's for sure. And we can go in boldly and confidently to do our part in playing out the miracles that we are guided and directed to do. Because every act of love we give out, every miracle, is healing on some level. And we may not know just how far-reaching one little act or one little word, one encouraging word or comment, you don't know how far that could actually go in terms of helping to heal the world. So tune in to that holy voice that's speaking to you and guiding you to act in love all the time. Because those little things are actually miracles. Alright, lesson 10. My thoughts do not mean anything. This idea applies to all the thoughts of which you are aware or become aware in the practice periods. The reason the idea is applicable to all of them is that they are not your real thoughts. We have made this distinction before and will do so again. You have no basis for comparison as yet. When you do, you will have no doubt that what you once believed were your thoughts did not mean anything. When you do, you will have no doubt that what you once believed were your thoughts did not mean anything. This is the second time we have used this kind of idea. The form is only slightly different. This time the idea is introduced with my thoughts instead of these thoughts, and no link is made overtly with the things around you. The emphasis is now on the lack of reality of what you think you think. This aspect of the correction process began with the idea that the thoughts of which you are aware are meaningless outside rather than within, and then stressed their past rather than their present status. Now we are emphasizing that the presence of these thoughts means that you are not thinking. This is merely another way of repeating our earlier statement that your mind is really a blank. To recognize this is to recognize nothingness when you think you see it. To recognize this is to recognize nothingness when you think you see it. As such, it is the prerequisite for vision. Alright, so to recognize that our mind is blank is to recognize nothingness when you think you see it. Close your eyes for these exercises and introduce them by repeating the idea for today quite slowly to yourself. Then add, this idea will help to release me from all that I now believe. The exercises consist, as before, in searching your mind for all the thoughts that are available to you without selection or judgment. Try to avoid classification of any kind. In fact, if you find it helpful to do so, you might imagine that you are watching an oddly assorted procession going by, which has little, if any, personal meaning to you. As each one crosses your mind, say, "My thought about does not mean anything. My thought about does not mean anything." Today's thought can obviously serve for any thought that distresses you at any time. In addition, 5 practice periods are recommended, each involving no more than a minute or so of mind searching. It is not recommended that this time period be extended, and it should be reduced to half a minute or less if you experience discomfort. Remember, however, to repeat the idea slowly before applying it specifically, and also to add, "This idea will help to release me from all that I now believe." Okay, close your eyes, introduce them. So we're going to start our practice periods of 1 minute or so of the 5 during the day. You can do it. Begin each session with, "My thoughts do not mean anything. My thought about this jacket does not mean anything. My thought about what's going to happen tomorrow does not mean anything. My thought about, oh gosh, why did I say that, does not mean anything. This idea will help to release me from all that I now believe." Or if you prefer, you could add that that sentence to every single thought. For example, "My thoughts do not mean anything. My thought about my car needing petrol does not mean anything. This idea will help to release me from all that I now believe." That's my cue to finish. So please keep up with your practice periods. I really like this lesson, personally. My thoughts do not mean anything. It's really, for me, quite a freeing and releasing idea. And yeah, I wish you well. May you be blessed, and we'll see you again soon. Okay, ciao.